Hey everybody, it's Funny here once again. Hope you're doing well. Today we're rambling about the Eowave Zone B.F. It is a 5 HP dual LFO for your rack, and it sounds like this. Okay, before we get started, I do have a bit of a cold today, so if I sound even weirder than usual, that's the reason. Sorry, I hope it isn't super annoying, but there's a few things I like to do more than these videos, so hopefully the show can carry on, at least while I feel good enough to do so right now. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, there's two modes that are addressable by jumpers on the back, so you can control the two independently in either a syncable way, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment, or in its current state that I'm calling the CV way. I don't think the manual actually gives it a name, but basically instead of syncing the oscillator with a clock or another waveform, it will control the speed knob. So I'm going to demonstrate that quick, and we probably won't spend much of the video in this mode, but I do want to demonstrate it just to be clear that right now you're going to see on our outputs there's the green from our first LFO and the blue from our second LFO. If I modulate the speed of the first LFO with the second, you'll see my second LFO is really slow. If we put that into the sync input to control the speed, you'll see the rate of that LFO is going to go way faster, way slower, depending on the position of that CV. Now, if you were going to make a tafony episode bingo card, you would definitely need to load it up with a place for my love of clocked modulation. And the reason I bought the Zone B.F is because it looks really appealing, really easy to clock, really easy to grab some divisions with the speed knob, and it's not actually that simple. This doesn't clock. So I purchased it under the impression that it would clock. Like I could send it whatever the PPQN it would want into the sync input of 1. It doesn't cascade into 2, which is also kind of a bummer, but it syncs. And that is an important distinction to make. Sorry if I'm all over the place, but if you've been watching this channel for any time at all, you know that is what we do. So I'm going to pull out the Zone BF here, and we'll unplug it before we do anything to the jumpers. So it's powered off now. If you can see, I have these hanging off the end here with just one to put it into that frequency CV mode. But if you put the jumpers on this one for CV1 and this one for CV2 for jumper 2, we'll just put that onto both of them. It'll put both of them back into sync mode. Now, as far as I know, you can do one of one and one of the other if you wanted to. I don't think I need to do that just yet anyway, at least not for the video, but we'll plug this back in here, and we'll get back into sync mode. Now, okay, so we'll scope up the output of our first one and our second one on the blue side. With nothing patched into the sync inputs, you'll see basically this works like any other LFO. This is sort of like your pitch and the speed side, and then same on the other front. Now there is these wave selectors, and the other thing that was bizarre about this one, I assumed this was a clicky knob. Just to use a scientific term. Like I thought this encoder would snap in between different waveforms, but it doesn't. So you kind of just got to eyeball, right? Obviously I'm hooked up to the scope here, so it'll be easy to see, but you got to go through here and yeah, basically watch your output source. And it does sort of make me wonder in a way too, like how it might seem important to pick specific waveforms, but it might actually be beneficial to just sort of dime it by ear here. Obviously, we're not listening to anything yet, but we will in a moment if we patch some things up into you. Again, the first one will be green, the second one will be blue. Anyway, but there is tons of waveforms on here. We have our triangle, we have our sine. They aren't continuously morphing, it just jumps through, which again, I mean, I bet a like 24-point encoder would probably double the cost of this module, but it is sort of unexpected, I guess. So then there's this sort of envelope thing. This is a saw wave. Then you have the ramp wave. And then there's sort of a offset phase one, or this is step modulation on the way up and then ramp on the way down, I believe, into square wave. And it's not pulse width variable, obviously, but you do get 3 different pulse width options. So there's a super thin one, even thinner one if you want to like use this as a clock or something. This crazy one is sort of like a pulsified sawtooth, but there is gaps that goes back to 0, which is interesting. Anyway, then we have lots of random voltage options. There's like a totally free running random one. Then there's this one that sort of follows a ramp wave. This one that's a randomized square wave. And then there's this one. I love the simplicity of this, and I kind of like the idea of like hooking some things up and just sort of going through it to try it out. So before I get into the more boring technical rambling part of it, let's do just that. So hopefully the scope will give you some information here. But what we have on the first one is the output of our LFO1. So right now I'm in triangle mode. You see that triangle going. And then the blue trace is the audio coming out of our chain. So the chain is triangle wave, an analog one from the wave transformer, basic waveform as you can get, then into the fold processor by Tip Top Audio, which I'm going to use that today to do a little bit of different demonstration of the waveforms or of the modulation, because in every other video I've basically done filter sweeps, and I want to sort of try something new, basically, because we always talk about what's the best way to demonstrate modulation. Well, we're going to try something different, and then that is going into the Excalibur filter, which is basically wide open. I'll add a little bit of resonance, but yeah, it's a super basic wave shape. I'm trying to use as little folding without pinging it, because we do want to be pinging it. So here in comes the CV from our LFO, and we're just going to noodle this one. So because it's droning, I'm not clocking it or anything. We're just going to go through. We have our triangle wave right now, and up into the sine wave. Speed it up. So that's folding it, right? I really like how that wave folder sounds. Get into this shape here that's the not sine, it's like a polarized sine. Saw wave, which obviously it has that big chop at the beginning. Ramp wave. And it does go up to audio rate, I believe. Let's try that in a moment. And then into these stepped modulation mode, which gives it a robotic-y feel when you're using it on a wave folder. I really like that. We got some square wave, different pulse widths, which would be fun for triggering envelopes, but doesn't work very well on this patch, I'd say. Then there's that stepped random. Totally random. There's your pulse varied random shapes. Here is our sort of triangle-ish, random-y-ish one. And then totally random. Yes. So now that we know what's going on with the audio side, I'm not going to scope the audio anymore, so we can go back out of this one. And you can listen to that beautiful noise. But then I'm going to take my blue trace now and we'll vary the cutoff of our filter. And maybe I'll get into... Now, just a quick reminder, these are not in sync at all. They're completely independent, so we're going to have some filter sweeps that are completely adjacent. It's not like two in sync envelopes or anything. We're running completely wild with no reset, but let's try out some different waveforms here. If I do, I don't know, try and pick a random wave shape for opening our filter. And then we'll probably want like a triangle wave for our folder, just because it's a little envelope-esque. If we try a sine just to change our sonic tone. I love wave shifting. This probably comes as no surprise. Out of curiosity, if I plug this straight into the filter, can I do audio right? Yep, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, triangle wave. Sine. Whatever this hump wave is. Saws. Ramps. Squares. PWM, but fixed widths. Random. And then there's noise at the very end. Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely a use for that one there. Oh. Cool. Sorry. I just want to see if that was possible. So, yeah. Audio rate is definitely possible into put our old waveform in. Oh, that sounds so good. Sorry. Irrelevant filter open a little bit more. Yeah. So I need to change the resetting time so we can see this better. So yeah, again, green trace, wave fold, blue trace, filter cutoff. Okay, before I start this next part, I want to point to a great video by Jeff from Sound and Voltage that explains oscillator sync, about how it's one of the most misunderstood and totally ambiguous parts of oscillators in general. But in that video, he explains about how the syncing is not the same as pitch matching. It's not the same as clocking. It creates new waveforms. And I'm going to show you that right here. So I'm sending a clock, a pulse from Pam's Pro Workout into the sync 1. So it's a triangle wave right now. And I put that sync in. And now we have a ramp wave. Well, why is that? Because it's not clocking it, right? It's not matching a speed and a reset and syncing that oscillator, right? I mean, it is syncing it, but it's basically setting the waveform start and stop, right? Which creates a different non-triangle waveform, right? So if I go over to the sine, we also don't get a perfect sine because it's resetting the cycles, right? It's not, Jeff explained that in 1,000 times way better than I can do, but just remember, it's not the same as clocking it, right? When it comes to the Zone B.F, I'm expecting it to be clocked to match the BPM and just basically do envelopes every quarter note or set a division here. It's not going to do that. And you see where I landed right here. Sorry, I need to zoom in. You're actually getting the start of the next cycle that's sort of plopping out, right? You're not getting sine waves that are in sync to my clock. And that's a bit of a buzzkill for me. Now, does that make for interesting modulation? Well, probably. Would you even notice that? Maybe. But it isn't. It means these peaks probably aren't going to align perfectly either. Now, is that the fun of modular? Probably. But just keep in mind, the syncing, not the same as clocking, right? Don't be an idiot like tafony is and buy it under the assumption that that's what it does. Now, when you do sync it, though, the speed still remains, right? And I thought the speed would mean clock divisions based on that, but it actually just sort of means the same thing, and the resets will adjust accordingly, right? So you end up in places like this where your LFOs aren't going all the way down to 0, right? And that may be totally okay. That probably proves for interesting modulation. That probably makes for interesting modulation, but you will find yourself in weird spots like this where you're getting waveform changes, right? I no longer have a sine wave, right? So just, I want to be, I want you to learn from my mistakes, right? And when it comes to the random side, this might be a non-issue because it's already super random. Heck, the speed doesn't even seem to change anything. Or the sync, for that matter. Oh no. but I just want to be clear. And the other thing, and I was like originally like, oh man, I really wish the sync input would cascade so I could just clock them both. But given that it doesn't even really clock them, I feel like maybe not necessarily something you even want to do. Again, I don't know why Eurorack hates clocking modulation so much. Like, I don't want to be caged, man. I don't want to live in the grid, man. I don't know what the actual reason is, but maybe it's really hard to do. But that being said, lots of waveforms, really cheap. And really hands-on, no button combos, no button at all, right? Yeah. I want to be something of an encyclopedic source for stuff, right? And there wasn't like any English stuff on this either, so it's kind of like you get one sentence on the product page and I'm like, well, you hope it's a certain way, but it's not. But I mean, even for the price though, at like, it was 140 Canadian dollars, I believe, like 2 LFOs, even if the sync is not how I expected, it's still like, I don't know, half a clocked, half an oct, also half the function, I guess, but I don't know. I think the hunt for the perfect LFO that I talked about in that video still continues, because no clocked LFO source is perfect in Eurorack, so hopefully someday someone will steal my idea and just do it. I just want to see it. I just want easy clocked modulation in enormous quantities. Yeah. Okay, I better get patching something to play us out. So I'm tafony. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, like, comment, subscribe, do all that crap that YouTube's always on my case but not promoting to you, and I'll see you in the next video.
Boom.